Hello everyone, and welcome to this next live stream for the DCS F-18C Hornet over the Persian Gulf Map. So I'm here at Havadaria on the Iranian coast, and in the previous live streams, the first one we took a look at was the UAE and Oman side, and the one after that, the last one, we took a look at the Iranian coastal area. And for this third one, we're going to take a look at some of the islands in the Persian Gulf. So, with no further ado, let's go ahead and get this started up. So, one of the new F5 liveries. And for today, we're actually in one of the new Finnish skins. Okay, pre-flight. So, parking brake set. Anti-skid is on. Master is safe. Wing fold matches. And seat is safe. So, let's see, battery on. 26 volts. Brake pressure at 3,000. Okay, do a fire test.
Engine fire left. Engine fire left. Engine fire right. Engine fire right. APU fire. APU fire. Bleed air left. Bleed air left. Bleed air right. Bleed air right. Engine fire left. Engine fire left. Engine fire right. Engine fire right. APU fire. APU fire. Bleed air left. Bleed air left. Bleed air right. Bleed air right.
Okay, looks good. We'll go ahead and get the APU going now. Okay, green light on. APU accumulator is good. So go ahead and crank the right engine. And waiting for 25 RPM on the right engine. Okay. Cycle the bleeds.
Roll left. Roll left. Flight control. Flight control.
Light test. And close canopy. Okay, that's better. And let's get these displays going. Now go ahead and remove the stick. Yeah, it's all good. Radio's on. I always like to put my 1 on manual and 2 on 3. And FCS page on the left TDI. We already have the bit page on the right. And let's go ahead to data, waypoint. Coordinates in those match where we should be at waypoint 0. So go ahead and start our alignment. And we see our alignment starting here now. Okay, let's get the left engine going. Waiting for 25. And probably in the future streams, we'll probably go ahead and bypass the startup. I want to do it the first 2 or 3 times, just so you guys can kind of see this repeatedly and start to become rote. Okay, both engines are online. Let's go ahead and clear these X's out with an FCS reset. All good. Go flaps up to auto. O-bogs on. Radar on. And do the SCS bit. I see the APU just kicking off there. Okay. SCS bit is done. Let's bring this the master bit page. And flaps back to half. And take off trim. And we've got 30s and 12s. That's all good. Uncage the SAI. Set altimeter to 200 feet. Altimeter here to 2885. Okay. And altimeter radar, HSI, bingo. Let's go 8,000. That's good. TAC camera I can worry about. EW suite is on. Set up my pages. Yeah, let's do a 4 down check. So bar, pitot heat, hook, and refueling probe. Okay, 4 down complete. No blends. Break off. NWS on. Okay, so I think we're all ready to go. So once I take off, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the islands here. Let's go to the F10 view and actually see where we're going to go. So here we are here, and so we're going to head up to Bandar Abbas. This is Kesham Island here. We're going to go over the airbase, then down to the two Tomb Islands, then Abu Musa, off to Siri, and then we're going to land here at Bangor Lenge. So back in the cockpit. So let's go ahead and take off. And once we get airborne and have some transit time, I got a bunch of questions from the forum, and I'll go ahead and try to answer a bunch of those. And actually, this is probably one of my favorite air bases in the map. A lot of ground clutter and objects, bushes and trees, and just a kind of a cool looking airfield. And I think I mentioned in the last video, I'm going to be taking off for Minsk and Moscow, actually be there this time next week. So there's going to be a gap for a couple weeks of videos, but once I get back, I'll start doing these videos again. And at that point too, we should have a lot of the weapon systems up and operational, and be able to start showing off some of those at that point. Okay, here, pull short. Okay, arm the seat, straps, HUD. Check my trim, traffic. Okay, let's take runway. And since my last video, I got a little bit of feedback. Actually, it turns out you don't usually do the engine right up at takeoff unless you're doing formation takeoff. So I'll go ahead and forego that in today's video. It actually looks like the runway is kind of sloped up here. And we got some rocket pods, a couple of AIM-9s. Okay, off we go. Backstick. Gear up, flaps up, about 12 degrees climb. Radar on. And come back on the throttles, set up the radar a bit. Okay, all cleaned up. So we got Bonder Boss here right below us. And you may recall we took a look at this last stream. And up ahead here we have Bonder Boss Airfield, and we'll head up there. And then after that we'll go ahead and head out to sea. And as I mentioned in the last stream, one of the big items we're still working on the map is the water. So we actually lightened up the textures a bit, not such a deep blue. And the big thing we're working on now is modeling the shallow areas. So along the coast and around the islands, and it's still very much in work. What we're having to do is adjusting the transparency of the water, the actual, essentially the mesh underneath the coastline, as well as the coloring, so you get more of that much lighter color in the shallow areas. And hopefully we'll have that all straightened out well before the early access release. And stores. There's a Bonder Boss Airfield again from a bit higher altitude than last time. And that's the military side down there. Should go ahead and put this in auto. Okay, we're head out to Ketchum Island now. And at the tip you'll see a rather large city, and pretty much the population focus point for that island. And then further inland is the airfield that we'll take a look at up ahead here. And autopilot here, I'll go ahead and put on a barometric altitude hold. And actually one of the cool new functions, and actually probably won't use it that much, but we still have it in here nonetheless, is the heading hold. And what you can do is, here's the course we talked about earlier, and here's the heading bug. So we can go ahead and set the heading bug. You see it along the bottom here, moving at 30, 24, 21, and now south. And what we could do is we can go ahead and enable that. And then I'll go ahead and fly us along that heading bug. Let's go ahead and disable that though. Let's arm up the jet. And also when I get back from my trip, I'll start probably showing off some of the new effects. Like the new water drops on the canopy that we showed a little teaser of yesterday. And here's Ketchum. And it's also our next steer point. Okay, let me put autopilot on here and take a look at some questions. Okay, so TexAx asks, will the new Hornet texture template be released prior to EA release or sometime after? maybe even earlier. Well, it really all depends on when we're 100% sure the model is done. At that point, just like we usually do, we release the template for you guys to make your own textures. So in all likelihood, yeah, that'll probably be before the early access. But again, it really depends on when the art team feels the model is all done. So once we do have an answer on that, we'll be sure to let you guys know. Next question by Shadow Step BG. How often, if all, do ED take inspiration from user wish lists, threads, and suggestions? Quite often, particularly when it comes to aircraft. There are several factors we use when deciding a new aircraft to do. And a big part of that, of course, is what the consumers want. Other aspects, of course, is whether or not we have the technology, the data, the SMEs, but certainly the wish list thread is a big part of kind of gauging customer reaction towards new aircraft and what you guys want. In addition to that, we also look at new features for things like the emission editor. It's a big one. New AI objects, new effects, like the raindrops, for example. A lot of that was based on a lot of the wish list that we saw a really strong demand for that little effect. So yeah, we definitely look at those, and it's a big factor of what we do. Let's see. Next, Tello asked, any plans to improve the current options for spawn on a waypoint server? Actually, I think that was probably in regards to the carrier. Yeah, and certainly that's going to be a big factor of the new carrier, the new Nimitz. Right now we're going to do it in stages. The first part is having the TACAN, the iFloss, and catapult steam. And then the second phase on that will be having spawn points, parking, both ramp and hot start on the carrier. And then the third phase will be the ground crew, or deck crew, I should say. And the plan is to make that animated and quite accurate. And just going to do it one step at a time. And so yeah, spawn points will be phase 2 for the carrier. So this is Kesham Airfield. A bit of a small airfield, but still, I think a pretty interesting airfield here. Okay, so I think the next waypoint is going to be, I think, Greater Tomb Island. So let's go back to some questions here. So, Dunn Angelus asks, will we also get updated 3D models for the HA-60 or new aircraft like the Super Hornet F or the C-2 Greyhound? Also, perhaps some more U.S. ships like the Arleigh Burke class, which is really missing from DCS World. So the Burke in particular is in development right now. As I think I mentioned before, we're working on a new S3, have a nice, pretty new tanker. And then, sure, after that, we're going to be looking at other aircraft, like the SH-60 definitely needs an overhaul. But for something like the Hornet, that's going to require a lot more work because an aircraft like that has a lot of potential for the future. So if we do a model for something like the Super Hornet, we want to make sure it's a really, really great model. So that'd probably be a little bit further down the road. So in terms of our population of the deck, at least for now, we're looking at Legacy Hornets, S3s, E2s, of course, and hopefully a new H860 in not too distant future. Let's see, Baz000 asked, any chance of seeing King Abdulaziz Air Base, Dhahran, Saudi Arabia? Not right now. Right now, I think you guys can see in the photo release for the pre-purchase of the map, that's really outside of the map area. And like we've indicated, hopefully at a later point when the technology allows, we can do an expansion to the map to include that. But right now the map is, from a technology point of view, in allowing you guys to run these maps at a decent frame rate, it's about 300 and 350 nautical miles on a side. Anything larger than that, we're really going to start to see some significant performance loss. So yeah, it's possible, likely in the future we'll be expanding, but we're going to have to wait for the hardware technology to catch up a little bit. Let's see, so AG51 Razor. I'm sure that when the new CV includes net software release, they will be awesome, but my question is about what will be available for us to use with the Hornet when it's initially released, and the fact you mentioned that during an early access period, you will be working to implement Case 1, Case 2, and Case 3 operations. By that, I assume you were referring to providing TACAN ACLS equipment to the carrier. When will the carrier, when the Hornet comes out first, will the Nimitz have functional catapults, IFLOS? Even the initial release, the plan is to have a functional IFLOS, catapult takeoff, TACAN, and so on. So you should be able to complete Case 1 launch and recovery operations. Later on, we'll need to implement the ICLS for Case 3, but also at launch we should have the TACAN in there as well. So you'll be able to do most carrier operations even at launch of the product. Casper asks, I also wonder the question of this question. Do you think to extend the map? Oh, yeah, kind of like I just mentioned there. It really comes down to a performance issue of right now of having the map big enough that it provides a lot of good gameplay entertainment, but also having it small enough that it ensures good performance. And right now, about 350 to 350, maybe a little bit larger, is about what we're looking at, that kind of Goldilocks zone. Some hits up here. Looks like some 29s out there. So up here ahead, this is a Greater Tomb Island. And over there, that's actually the tip. I think that's actually part of Oman there. So you can see, here's Qashm, here's Oman, just how narrow the straits really are here. Yeah, this is a Greater Tomb here, a little bit of a larger airstrip. In many ways, these islands for Iran are almost like little fortress islands, very heavily defended. There's some bunkers and stuff scattered around the island. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and head off to Lesser Tomb. Oh, actually got a contact. Looks like some MiGs out there. Yeah, looks like a target out there at about 29 miles. So this is a Lesser Tomb here, a very small little airstrip.
Altitude.
see some of the bunkers down there too. And we got some auto-generated ship traffic as well now. Okay, the next stop on this little tour is going to be Abu Musa Island. Some fires up ahead as well. Quick questions. See, some free roamer. What sort of timeline are we looking at for the early access for such weapons and systems like the AT FLIR, JDAM, LGB? In all likelihood, should be before the end of this year. Probably the first priority in terms of weapons after early access will probably be the HARM, just because it really adds kind of a needed dimension for Blue Side. Daniel NL asks, what Persian Gulf features will Persian Gulf Map features some airfield airstrips on the southeastern, northeastern sides of the map. So right now what you see in the pre-purchase image of the map is what we're planning. Again, it's also possible in the future we may expand that, but what you see is what you get right now in the current pre-purchase image. Yep, so here's our new Nimitz, and doesn't have the static aircraft yet, but that's coming soon. And once we get the IFLOS up and running, then I'll certainly be doing some carrier landings, some Case 1 recoveries once I get back. But without the IFLOS, a little bit of negative training to do such a video right now. And also, I think since the last video, we've updated some of the Lex effect. Let me see if I can get some generated here. So much less cotton ball looking now, much more vapor looking.
Altitude. Altitude.
So this is Abu Musa, one of the two primary Iranian islands here in the Gulf, at least as part of the map. Yeah, pretty nice airstrip here. And next up is Siri Island. up ahead where the smoke plumes are. Yeah, good times for some more questions. Near Blind asks, are there any plans to add Iranian shore-based anti-shipping missile launchers in surface ships? Yeah, right now the current focus for Iran is updating our current units in terms of skins. Then after that, we'll start moving towards some of the more unique and brand new weapons for Iran as well. And certainly, you know, given the scenarios for this part of the world, having shore-based Iranian anti-ship missiles like the the Sea-1 1 and 2 are definitely going to be needed. Phantom 453, regarding the last Persian Gulf stream over Iran, and specifically the T's in respect to the MiG-29, can you please provide some more info, even if it's just more detailed T's? You know, we can really say at this point that the MiG-29 professional flight model is on the queue and something certainly planned, hopefully for later this year. But you know, a full-up new DCS MiG-29, not at this point. Right now, our current focus is just finishing up PFMs for all the different SC-3 aircraft. Okay, Will asks, will we see some AGM-65E and HARM video possibly next year? Should be this year. Like I mentioned earlier, HARM is very much a high priority for us in terms of weapon systems for the Hornet. Flankerman, will the wingtip AMRAAMs be removed? I think that's confined just to the current AI and DCS 2.5. Of course, the real legacy Hornet does not have that capability, so that will certainly be removed when the Hornet is released. Digital Engine asks, will the aforementioned carrier deck crews be animated, static, or mixture? Probably a mixture. You know, probably the brown, the purple, and white shirts will be static, but then the yellow shirts will probably be animated. That's the plan. Coming up on Syria Island here now. Mainsail. Are there plans for a really immersive campaign with the Hornet and the Persian Gulf Map? Yeah, actually we've already reached out to several really talented campaign builders, and they're already planning and working on some campaigns for that. And we're also looking at, I think I mentioned before, some dynamic options as well that we think you guys are really going to appreciate, but we'll get some more details on that in the future. Race Fuel 85, is there a goal, plan, etc. to eventually merge 3 maps into one continuous Middle East map? So as mentioned, right now the kind of performance map limit is about 350 by 350. But later on, we're certainly looking at a whole Earth round model. But that's going to be coming later. Right now, our priority is on the current map technology, but that's eventually what we're going to be going to, have the ability to have a whole Earth model and be able to combine all the maps into a single one, and essentially be able to fly from, say, the Persian Gulf map to the Syria map, and then up to Caucasus, and then on to Normandy. Okay, so now we're going to head back to Bandar Lege and recover there. And again, this is Syria Island right here. I'll do a quick low pass.
Altitude.
I'll tell you what, I know there's been some users asking for a bit more aggressive hard maneuvering. We get a little altitude here and we'll put some G and some AOA on the aircraft.
Altitude. Altitude.
Yeah, you can really see the slow speed capability of the Hornet. Really good nose pointing capability, even when below 150 knots.
Bingo. Bingo. Altitude. Altitude.
Yeah, just punch off these stores. That'll give us some more G now. Seven 2, 7 4, 7 6. So usually you're looking about a max G of around 7 8. And with a lightly loaded jet, you can usually sustain around 7 8 there. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Bangarlenge. It'll be a bit of a transit, so we'll go ahead and do some more Q&A. Okay, so where we leave off with, I guess, let me scroll down a little bit. So, Viper Driver, can you give us more information about the new hose and basket physics for the AAR? What about turbulence behind the tanker in general because of weather conditions? So with the hose and basket, we're looking at really realistic physics. So you get proper hose bend, kind of the window it can bend out to. If you bump the probe against the lip of the basket, it bounces away, it kind of cants, and then corrects itself into the wind flow, things like that, just so it really looks and behaves like a real basket would. Also at the same time, we're also investigating the essentially prop wash as well as engine wash. So if you're tanking and you get too high, you'll start to feel that kind of turbulence, or if, heaven forbid, you get into the wingtip vortice, something like a 707, it can be pretty dramatic. So yeah, it's certainly high on the priority list of having that much more of a realistic experience when you're tanking. Bloodhound 57, WAGs, will NAS Fallon modeled for the NTTR map? No, again, it's way too far out of scope in terms of how big that map would be. And also, it is the NTTR range, it's not the Fallon range. So it's also possible we'll do a Fallon range map at a later point, but it certainly won't be part of the NTTR map. IRC Ghost, is there any information regarding the buying options for the new map? Will it be included with the Hornet? If so, during pre-release, do you expect any combo deals in the future? So at least in pre-release, there are definitely separate purchases. But as any guys who follow us, we are big fans of bundle deals. So in all likelihood, we'll certainly be having bundle deals of the Hornet and the map at a future point, as well as probably the carrier. So I would certainly expect that at a later point, but not at release. As Azul, will the Hornet be initially available in 2.5 stable or open beta? In all likelihood, it will be open beta. Traditionally, when we put a new big product out, it will always be an open beta first. Piston 85, it was mentioned by WAG several times. The INS of the Hornet will be getting an EGI implemented also. Actually, the block of the Hornet we're doing does not have EGI. It's actually a separate module for the INS and the GPS. They can talk to each other, but it's not actually a no-kidding EGI system. JG52 NF2, with regards to new aircraft carrier model, how to obtain it, and whether the functions of the aircraft carrier parking position in the editor has been approved. Can't it support the parking of more aircraft borne by players? Yeah, so actually that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. For phase one, you'll just start from the catapults, kind of like we do now, but then phase two, we'll be adding the ability to spawn at the parking spots, but that will be a little later after the initial release of that updated Nimitz class carrier. Okay, get my mind around my landing here. So my landing course is going to be 80 degrees. So 80. Okay, let's hope this goes better than my last overhead pattern. And the field's right over there. Okay, wings, trim, flaps, hook, harness, lights. Good, okay. Okay, about on course. Now when you're looking for 800 feet at 350 knots. And like I mentioned, the Persian Gulf Map, a lot of the work now is just kind of finishing up the water. We've actually pretty much finished up the buildings now in terms of having most everything regional specific. So we're getting pretty close for Persian Gulf Map. And obviously with the pre-purchase, it's coming quite soon now. Certainly before the end of May. Probably sooner. And the previous overhead I did, and it turns out my biggest error was I was way too far offset to the right, and that brought me in way too wide during my final 180. So I'm going to be a lot closer this time, and also watching my G during my initial 180 to make sure I'm displaced about 1.2 nautical miles offset from the runway. Okay, looking for my target airspeed and altitude now. And here we go, Bonner Lenge. Actually, the previous video, we it's a little too far off to the west that we missed it. So I think at this point you've actually seen all the airfields in the map. Okay, and break out, idle, into the turn. Gear down, flaps down. Altitude about 600 feet, I'm shooting for. Trimming for 8.1. A little low, a lot low. Air brake back in. And pretty much hands off at this point now. A little high, okay. 30-degree bank. Got a little low there. Holding 30. A little high. Adjusting my glide slope with throttle. AOA with trim. I'm going to be a little long in the groove on this one. Come back on the throttle a little bit as I'm rolling out. About a 3-degree glide slope, which is pretty good. Uh, 600 or so velocity. And we're down. That was a lot smoother. On the brake. A little issue with the nose wheel steering still. Actually, it's my turn off back there. I'll go ahead and turn around. And it's one of the issues we're still cleaning up right now is the nose wheel steering authority. And I'm sure we'll have that all cleaned up by time of early access. Yeah, okay, we'll bring it back to the ramp and we'll shut her down. Go ahead and open the canopy. And wigs up. And our Parker here. Okay, let's start to shut her down a little bit more intelligently than I did last time. I don't want to have any electrical surge here. So just the left engine off first. Brake out. Flaps down. Okay. Right engine. And hopefully when I get back from my trip, I'll be able to show off some Canadian, Spanish, and Australian skins as well. And battery off. And that should do it. Anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed this last live stream tour of the Persian Gulf map. When I get back, we're going to start focusing on the weapon systems and some actual combat mission streams. So I'll see you probably in about 3 weeks. And take care, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.